There we go. We're recording. There we go. What's going on, everybody? My name is Jason Joseph. This, of course, is Play by Play with JJ. We've been doing this channel for 7 months, but you know what we haven't been doing in a very long time? Even though it's baseball season and we're still in the prime of stuff, training camp has just started. And you know what? We got to talk about the Patriots. It's been a little bit of time, and I'm here with my man, patsstats. You know, the one and only patsstats. He's been doing some incredible content here on YouTube, just talking about the draft, talking about training camp, and all the videos that he puts out there are just absolutely incredible. And I just have a ton of respect for him. Patsstats, thank you so much for coming on here, first of all. How you doing? Oh, I think he lost his mic really quickly. That's all right. I was running into some technical difficulties for a little bit, so I totally understand that for sure. Um, it's I have a new setup here on StreamYard, so I totally understand. I've been trying to fix a lot of new stuff. We have a new background on here. What's up, Eric? Hello? Can you hear me, patsstats? Oh, can you hear me? Testing. We're gonna get you on.
There we go. I'm good.
There we go. What's going on?
Computer's overheating.
That's always
it's
fun.
83 in here.
Oh boy.
Even with all the ACs on and everything, it's very,
such
very
a hot day out here in South Jersey.
Yeah, it's brutal. Anyway, sorry about that.
No, you're totally okay.
So what are we doing?
Oh no, I was just talking to everybody and just letting them know. You know, I've been meaning to talk about the Patriots for a little bit of time, but even though we're in the middle of baseball season, you know, training camp just started, and you know, I've been really just in love with the content that you've been putting out there, you know, on YouTube and everything that you've been doing. And no, I just wanted to know, like, how's everything going, and how much are you looking forward to this season overall?
In general, it's going to be an interesting season. I'm excited because there's all those questions that haven't been answered. Quote unquote, Belichick's kind of on the hot seat. Bill O'Brien's coming back. The whole Mac Jones, is he for real? Is he not?
It's a soap opera
about what do they believe in him? They bring some people in. The whole mess that happened last year. Yep. There's just so much going on. So yeah, it's a little apprehensive because you're sitting there and you're watching and you're listening, you're looking at their moves, and you want to believe that what Bill Belichick's doing is, the whole idea about him playing, chess versus checkers.
Yeah, right.
And that he's so cerebral, and he's, and I could see some of those elements in there, but I think the biggest problem is the last couple of years. I think the very obvious thing that most fans are like, this is the problem. And then you watch the season and it's not like, oh, we're proven wrong. It's like, no, the fans are proven right. Like this time last year, people are like, who's calling the offense? And it's like, we don't have an offensive coordinator. So is it Matt Patricia and Joe Judge? And, basically comes down to Matt Patricia and Joe Judge being, quarterback's coach with Mac. And everybody's like, I'm not sure if that's going to go very well. Yeah. And then, this time of year and everybody's like watching, preseason or watching camp, and they're like, things aren't looking too good and they're not running what they used to do, which is what Mac was good with last year. So what's going on here? And then you get to the season, you're expecting, okay, this is the Patriots, Belichick's going to rein it in.
Yep.
And he doesn't. And not necessarily that Belichick could have done anything about it. It was just such a mess. So there's all those things that are going on that were, we don't know what's going to happen. And going into the season, I'm still apprehensive, although there's a lot of check marks. Hey, they went and got Clem for offensive line coach. They got Bill O'Brien coming in. Well, just those two things should be enough to alleviate stress. But offensive line this year is, Trent Brown. Is he really in on this? Yep. Is Cole Strange actually legit? He was a first-round draft pick. He had a really rough half of the first half of last year, but second half he showed some, potential. But who knows?
David Andrews
getting up there in age.
Yeah,
I was going to say he's probably the only one that we're good. we're good.
Yeah.
But then he's also
I'm knocking
he
on
got
wood
injured.
because he's right. Because
Yeah,
of
he
the
got injured
injuries.
twice last year with a head. I
Yep.
mean, like that all takes a toll. On Wenu's got an ankle situation right now. We haven't seen him yet really this offseason. He's going into a contract year. He's played right tackle. He's he's basically one of the best right guards.
Yes.
But that goes to the next thing, which is the right tackle situation was who's playing right tackle. We brought in Riley Reif. Everybody's like, oh, great, that's the backup. And it's like,
I don't know.
We didn't go. But here's the thing. Then they have McDermott. He's there. He played this last quarter or last third of this season last year. He did all right.
Yep.
He did all right. But again, Mac had like zero time last year. Zero time to throw the ball. Twice as many sacks. I mean, you can go down the stats of like how bad Mac had it in terms of like pass protection, and it showed. I mean, he was rushed. The amount of incompletions, if you go back and actually watch the tape, like his incompletions aren't him overthrowing that much. It's him having to throw the ball away, like just getting rid of it. And it's the amount of 3 and outs. And, it comes down to the offensive line play, who was the main source of penalties. I mean, so bringing in Adrian Clement, bringing in Bill O'Brien, you think would help out, which it will be. But there's also just the idea of who's actually there. There's, like I said, like David Andrews is about the only guy on that starting line right now that is suspected starting line that is like, I don't have to worry, but even then it's like, I kind of do. So, but so that's where it is for that. I mean, gosh, pass catchers, obviously we want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins in situations, but the receivers, better than last year, in my opinion. A lot of people, I love Jacoby Myers, but I think Juju's dramatically better in terms of when he catches the ball, what he can do, how he navigates traffic.
Yep.
Jacoby Myers had a very big situation where he catch the ball and he just kind of like fall over, It wasn't much of after contact guy, initial contact. There's a lot. I mean, Aguilar, I think everybody was like, thank you for getting rid of him. I mean, last year
that wasn't gonna work.
Like the amount of fumbles and interceptions that he caused last year and he never really produced anything. But anyway,
I have a lot of Philly fans like on here that are in the chat. So like like I see like fly Eagles fly, like go Birds, and so like whenever I see Nelson Aguilar and even Jalen Mills, even though like they brought him back, it's just like wow.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting year. Let's just say that it's going to be a very interesting year for the Patriots. Around the league in general, it's going to be very interesting. A lot of big names got moved around this offseason. Injuries we have some serious injuries. I know Burrows seems to be okay, but that is an injury that he's had before. There's some stuff going around. Yeah. So calves. It's interesting. But anyway, let's get into it, I guess.
No, for sure. And I think that you hit the nail on the head with talking about DeAndre Hopkins first, because that was like one of the main storylines, like as of right now. Okay, he signs with the Tennessee Titans. He gets a 2-year, $26 million contract. If I'm not mistaken, that's all guaranteed.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there. I mean, it's really coming down to about 10 to 12 if you look at it. But the big thing is it's almost basically a 1-year contract.
Right, exactly, because of the way.
It's when you first get the numbers out, the agents, because they're the first ones to report it, they like to do well for their look how great I did for my guy, but the numbers aren't really that good,
right?
Which is a big red flag because at first I was like, are you kidding me? It's DeAndre Hopkins, and people can go into the idea that he's a little bit older. But the big thing about DeAndre Hopkins is that none of his physical attributes that he has that are very good, really depreciated or will depreciate with age.
Over time.
He was never very fast.
Right.
He never really jumped very far. He wasn't explosive. Just big hands, really talented. His ability to separate is Yep. So that's the thing. He gets open and he always got open, even though he was he's a 4.640. That's not very fast. And not very explosive. So, that just goes to show you that he'll continue to produce, but he has had injuries. Yep. So I'm wondering that the injuries and the knee injury he had at the end of last year, although undisclosed really, Kind of scared a bunch of people off. I think the PED, suspension, which, people can say, well, if he was on, like, say, growth hormone or something like that, was that what was keeping him alive? And now that he can't, is he going to be done? There's a lot to go on there. But, I'm sitting there, and it's just, as a classic Patriots fan, and I think a lot of people in many, teams are like, why didn't you pull the trigger if he was going to be like $12 million and you got, I think, the third most cap? You still have so much cash sitting on the sideline just for this season, and it gets even more next season. And in the season after that, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And so, why couldn't you just open it up a little bit? Obviously, in terms of like physical cash, they have plenty of it. They're not a cash strapped team in terms of ownership. So plenty of space. It was frustrating, but when you sit there and you think about it, there must have been a little bit of some red flags in there, because why is it only the Patriots and the Titans that were really interested in them?
I mean, and the other thing was, like, my other question that I had was, the relationship between Belichick and Hopkins, if that was going to work out too, because I kind of figured that from what I was reading from just different reports that it would have been really tough for them to click together. But at the end of the day, like, when it comes to talent, like, you have to go out there and try to get the best talent as possible, whether it's a wide receiver, whether it's especially a wide receiver, because they really haven't been able to knock that position out of the ballpark. So, but I don't know. I do kind of question the whole relationship with the front office and just, trying to come together on negotiations and those types of things, because I don't think that the Patriots necessarily did their best in regards to that.
The amount of times where there's been somebody, in the building or rumored or linked to the Patriots, and it just, eventually, comes down the line that Bill kind of just, said no to it. And Robert Kraft, I think, in almost every media clip that you can find him speaking about free agency, he's just like, Bill's got thumbs up for me, whatever he thinks is, exact. But and you should. And the thing is what stinks about it from probably Robert Kraft's is he probably knows how many times where they've had a big name in the building that we don't even know about. And, all these different, potential people coming in on free agency or big blockbuster trades. And he's probably said no because of this reason, and it's worked out. So that's where I think where we don't know as fans, and I think a lot of people, in the media don't really know that, like, how many times Bill's been right on things in that respect.
That's true.
It's just, and wide receivers are really rough to, like, figure if they're
going to hit or miss,
really pan out. Yeah. And that's, but here's the other thing. It goes to that, which is you got to sign them often. You can't just be, like, apprehensive to say, like, well, we don't know, so we should never take a chance. You got it, but they don't take chances. That's my biggest thing is you're not even trying. Like, I don't think anybody would have been like, you signed DeAndre Hopkins. Now, if we signed him for a $20 million a year or something, like, something astronomical, or matched Odell Beckham, which I think was ridiculous. But say you pay him top tier now and it doesn't work out. Okay. You pay him like $12, $13 million and it doesn't work out. Yeah, you're probably going to have some people that are just willing to say, Bill doesn't know what he's doing. But that's not like, compared to, like, other guys, they're going to probably come close to his production this year, that are going to get paid basically similar to him. It still makes you feel like, like, what are we doing here? You have player valuations, which I love doing. That one, there's got to be some sort of red flag with him, with DeAndre, and basically everybody else over the last few years that they brought in. They missed horribly on Aguilar. They missed horribly on, Jonnu Smith. And I think that's, when they did that, that was
the year that they got a lot of free agents, where they got Judon as well, and they got Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, that was the biggest. Yeah. They were the number one spenders that offseason. And it just turns out that, and Bourne, like all these guys.
Kendrick Bourne,
Yeah. So, we have some really great guys there, but then, everybody's going to remember you're the Aguilar and Jonnu Smith because, on paper, on film prior to them being the Patriots, great guys, just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I'm watching them, besides Jonnu probably not being schemed in a lot, Nelson Aguilar just stunk. He just
It's
I mean, it's not
terrible.
like I didn't see it being like Mac's fault or like, play calling fault. Ball like hit his hands. Like
Yeah.
he couldn't get separation. Like he fumbled the ball. That's why Aguilar was not good. But anyway.
No, I'm totally with you on that. And it's really just a shame about the whole DeAndre Hopkins thing. But when you look at the whole entire offseason, okay, they get Juju Smith-Schuster, right? They get Mike Gesicki, and they bring some other guys back too. Like they get Riley Reef on a 1-year, $5 million contract. Calvin Anderson, 2 years, $7 million, even though he's out right now. But then you look at the draft. You get Christian Gonzalez, you get Keon White, and then you get a couple of guys in the interior. And then this was also the first draft where they actually drafted a punter and a kicker in the same draft for the first time since 2000.
Yeah.
So when you just address the whole entire offseason as a whole between the draft and free agency signings, what grade would you give them?
Oh, I mean, I'm pretty bullish on it. I can't give it like the A+ because like you'd give it like a Hopkins and I still say like it's a little. We'll see what happens in like over the next couple weeks.
Sure.
I think they'll probably bring in. There's going to be some moves, I think, but in terms of bringing in Juju and letting Myers go, I give that a plus. I don't know. I mean, it's not.
It wasn't
even
going to work with Jacoby.
What's that?
It wasn't going to work with Jacoby.
Yeah, he's your reliable pass catcher, but they can't just do the reliable pass catcher. You need somebody if they get the ball. They're going to be able to do something a little bit more than literally just being like, again, like kind of just moving it one space. You need somebody who can navigate, have the vision. I mean, in terms of weight and size and strength, Juju has him by a mile. And he's a little bit quicker, a little bit more explosive in many ways, but it's just when the ball's in his hands, he just has that, explosivity, big play ability, and the yak,
I also feel like he's better in the slot too.
Oh yeah, I mean,
see,
here's the big problem about Jacoby, which is they had to put him. He was limited to the slot. He was an amazing slot guy. He could play there because he's a good, awesome, solid professional football player. But again, the physical attributes don't allow him to be explosive from there. Which if you're in the slot, you have to be like this, that, all over the place because you're in the middle of the field. You don't use the perimeter, the sideline as a tool. Whereas like you take a Hopkins or one of your top X guys who works in contested catch situations on the sidelines, they use that as a tool. Jacoby could never do that. He never had you put him out there once in a while, but he just never had the physical attributes to maximize the perimeter. So he's a good pass catcher. He's really smart. He's reliable. Well, the only other thing you could do is put him in the slot. So that was the issue there. But Juju, legit slot player, legit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I also really like I know that it was funny because I was listening to a Pro Football Focus and I was listening to what Sam Monson and Steve Palazzolo had to say like right after the draft was done, and they said that they nailed the first 3 picks, but after that they just they just added random players, and I thought, just from like checking out your video, you said that there was actually more of a strategy, like going behind, like, getting Kayshawn up and getting Antonio Mafi and Sidney Sow and Isaiah Bolden and all these other guys. And I tend to agree with you because they needed more guys in the middle, right? They needed more cornerbacks because, at the backfield last year really struggled. So just like what are your like overall thoughts in just regards to like how they attacked like the 5th and just like the 6th round? Because I thought that they did a pretty good job overall.
Yeah, my all right. So my only issues would be there was some lost opportunities where there were some guys on the board where you probably should have pulled the trigger on them probably in that 4th round area.
Sure.
And we'll probably see what happens. But that was my initial reaction. But I want to go over the first thing to go over about this last draft was it was incredibly thin. That was a weak draft. You had about 7 to maybe 9 guys that were actually worthy of being in the first round. Most
Yep.
guys that like say take this coming year, which is loaded in typical first round positions, take wide receiver, quarterback, offensive linemen, tackles, especially guys that you usually want to have on a rookie first round. So you get that extra year, right? So I don't think any of the quarterbacks that were just signed this rookie season that got drafted well, there's only a couple really there, but none of those guys would be probably drafted in the first round this next year.
Right.
Wide receivers, it would be basically Jackson Smith-Njigba. And then the rest of the guys like Zay Flowers. I love Zay Flowers. I
like Zay Flowers too.
Zay Flowers, awesome. But you know what? He wouldn't be in the first round this next year, assuming all the guys that are eligible to come out. Yep. And same offensive tackles, you would have maybe one guy out of this last year that would be possibly in the first round. Right. The corners were really the only thing that was really abundant that had a bunch of first round talent this year. And the Patriots, beyond lucked out getting Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion. But the reason why I'm so bullish on what they did in that 4th to 7th round was because these are things where people are trying to scramble for those wide receivers and offensive tackles. You had guys that were like probably a seventh round offensive tackles being drafted in the 3rd round because there's so few of them. Well, the Patriots were like, well, I don't want it next year. I don't want to be looking for guards. I don't want to be looking for kickers next year. I don't want to be looking for punters or these special teams guys, like, because both the guys that they brought in for corners, minus Gonzalez, are all special teams guys. They're going to be gunners, kick
returners. Speed is going to be one of those guys for sure.
Exactly. So all those guys, they basically went 4th on out, is essentially just to make sure that we got them this year, and it's such a weak draft. So you don't have to go get them this coming year.
You can get them next year.
Yeah. So this next draft, this 2024 draft, you don't have to go and be like, well, we have to get a guard this year. No, we already got him. We already got multiple guards. We got another center. We have plenty of special teams guys. We can just focus on the fact that the wide receiver depth is going to be really deep. Quarterbacks are going to be deep. Offensive tackles are going to be deep. Edge is still going to be pretty deep. Linebackers are going to be deep. Again, you're just like, even just in quality wide receivers next year, you're going to have like 30 or so that are going to be, probably in the top, that may be worthy of top 100s. That's the crazy part. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
The only question mark I had during this draft is, why did they go for Jake Andrews as early as they did, for a backup center? But then I also thought about it, to be devil's advocate, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you really think about it, if David Andrews, God forbid, if he gets hurt, right? Like, that was probably one of the reasons why they probably had to take him. I just thought that maybe they could have waited a little bit more, but
if you look at the board, centers were starting to go. Yeah. And there was about 3 guys up at the top, and all of a sudden, massive gap in talent. And after Andrews, nothing. So if you again, and that's why, they pulled the trigger on the kicker. What was his name from Jake Moody from Michigan? He went, and then all of a sudden they said, "Oh, we got to go," and they moved up because all of a sudden there's going to be a run on kickers. They need a kicker.
Well, they have to get a kicker.
Folk is basically almost done, and on top of that, he doesn't do kickoffs.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, so they were the reason why they went after Ryland. Punter, they brought this Corliss Waitman guy in on a free agent deal, but we needed a good punter. Behringer is by far the best punter. If you can get him in the late rounds, that's great.
They went after 2 Michigan State guys.
Yeah.
I had to laugh at that.
So at first everybody's flipping out, but then it makes a lot of sense. The Kayshon Boutte, if that guy can, he was prior to his injury as a freshman, he was coming in as the number 1 freshman in that class.
Yep.
Just got injured, didn't have a really good time at LSU. I think his injury is it's what they call a Liz Frank injury, which is we don't know exactly what it is, but there's an injury to his midfoot. Again, it takes a very long time for that to heal. It will take forever. in some cases, especially if you're actually running and doing things on it. So even with all the therapy and rehab, it'll be interesting if he's going to be ready for even like a year or so down the line. But in terms of like skills, he's good. He's solid. It's just can his foot, get back into shape.
Right.
They picked up Demario Douglas. That's probably the best
steal.
one of the best steals in the whole draft.
Yep.
One of the best.
Sure.
I was in love with him once I saw some Shrine Bowl videotape where he was out there, which the Patriots were there. So it makes sense that they got him.
Like he was what pick was he? I think it was like 200s, right?
Yeah, he was 200. He was like 6th round. So he's one of the 6th round guys. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, are they gonna pick this guy up? I mean, you take him.
It's just like right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, now that's a great thing about the Patriots is they start to realize that like the value on some of these guys, like that guy, you get him in the 6th round. I didn't see a massive difference between him, Zay Flowers. He's physically more better athlete than Tank Dell, which all these guys are like, 5'8", 5'10", $160 to $170, super shifty guys. And, you see him in the 6th, you're going to get him in the 6th versus getting like, Tank Dell in the 4th and Zay in the 1st. Definitely much a value pick. And sure. At this point in watching camp, I think he might make the team. I think the way he plays, because last year they used Marcus Jones, who's a corner, and they basically have the same size skill sets in terms of physical attributes and everything. I think they'll be using probably Demario on offense, which is absurd in many ways. But there's a lot of guys in that draft, which a lot of people are scratching their heads like, why are we picking? It's like you'll see,
right?
It'll work out.
I do want to talk a little bit about training camp too, because I know that just started on Tuesday, and they actually just had. I think today's like the 2nd day. It just started at like 2:00, right?
They did some this morning. They did this morning. It was very hot there. Heat index is close to 100.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it wasn't that.
It was super low key. I mean, they were like doing walkthrough drills. So I don't blame them. I think a lot of people discount how important it is for like you got a 330-pound guy, and you're putting them out in the sun. They're cooking for like a couple hours.
Yeah.
Like that takes more than just like an hour or two to like really recover from. Like, you can be a functional athlete, but like, let's not push anything the first few days of practice. I mean, you look around. I mean, especially with the injuries and everything that's going around, you don't want to put some of these guys out of commission because they start so late in the season now. In terms of like, I mean, camp used to be almost 50 practices.
Well,
back
and
in
the first day of the preseason is August 10th.
Yeah.
So
I mean, now all of a sudden you don't have that first few weeks to ease in. It's like you got to ease in terms of like non-contact, but these guys are not going to ease into showing off what they can do, right? Because if you have only a few days, like a few weeks to really show that you can be on a team, you can't be like, well, we're kind of easing into practice for first few days. No, you got to show up and you got to separate yourself from everybody else because it's millions of dollars on the line.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens. That's why we have these injuries so early in the season now, because you're not getting these guys in quote unquote football shape, but they're also like only getting this small little window to prove themselves. So they can't like take it easy. Even though they're taking it easy, they're not. So that's that's what we got so far. Thankfully, the Patriots really only have had like a couple, like, some guys coming off on a limp, some guys showing up a little bit late, but I don't know. Someone's going to get injured at some point, it's just every single season.
That's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
Course.
It's just worse. It's worse now. It's just so much worse. Guys are coming in bigger, heavier, stronger. They start moving around with a different body that they worked on in the off season. They start playing real football. ACLs go, meniscuses go, Achilles go, it's part of the deal.
Well, and I wanted to get into like really quickly, somebody that really flashed during that first day of training camp is Ty Montgomery, and we all know about the shoulder issue that he was dealing with last year. I don't know if you got a chance to like watch like the first day, but like if you did, like what stood out to you about Ty?
Well, it's actually kind of what he's always been able to do. But Ty Montgomery's always been injured. I mean, I think he's got maybe one season since like in a decade, essentially, that he hasn't been like really injured for a good chunk. Not like, oh yeah, out for a game. We're talking like IR, out for the season type of thing. And multiple surgeries. But when the guy can play, I mean, he's a wide receiver that can do running back. You know, people call them wide backs. He can play everywhere. He's an offensive weapon, and he's good at actually pass blocking. He's good at blocking in the open field. That's been apparent his whole entire career. The guy's he's been a great kick returner. He was actually, junior year in college. He was a kick returner in college and punt returner as well. So he's got skill. It's just, can he stay in the field? He's got, he's a sickle cell carrier. So, that gives you a little bit of a red flag of constantly always being injured under stress. It's just one of those unfortunate things about having that. So, for him, it's just, I really hope he can stay healthy. But I mean, even, he got injured yesterday. He walked off the field with a hamstring, and he wasn't there today. He was, I'm not even sure if he was down on the rehab field. Yep. So if all goes well, he's and he's smart, works hard. Obviously, the guy always comes in shape. He's very explosive for his age. Yes. Again, it just comes down to, whatever random injury he gets that, takes him out for the year.
There was one play that I saw on social media where Miles Bryant, he was breaking up a pass on Tyquan Thornton in that first practice on Tuesday. And that really got me fired up, to be honest with you.
Right.
What do you think his ceiling should be going into this season?
Miles Bryant? Miles Bryant, everybody's kind of waiting for him to really pop. And I want him to. Because the whole here's the problem. If we take the hierarchy of the corners and just the defensive backs in general, and how things kind of want to shift out in different packages and everything, if Jack Jones really can't go this year for legal issues, that brings Jonathan Jones probably back into the slot maybe, but also might probably kick some back out because Jack Jones is a perimeter guy. So Jonathan Jones has to go back out. And then maybe Marcus Jones can play the slot, but God knows if he can.
Yeah, but, right.
And it also brings back Miles Bryant back into the fold of playing these various spots. But I went to games last year. Miles Bryant, when he was on the field, was targeted. They're we're going after that guy because he's 5'8" and $170, but he's also 5'8", $170 with basically no vert.
Right.
So, there was times where he's going out and he's going against a bigger receiver and he's just getting out muscled.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if you can make that up. He's a slot guy. But, there's two guys ahead of him, in my opinion, that could handle the shiftier slot guys, which would be Jonathan Jones would be the best. And then Marcus Jones is right there. I don't know what happens there. But the problem is that if Jack Jones is gone, Miles Bryant's going to find a way to probably shift up into that depth chart and find a place to be. And I hope the best for him, but I'd rather not rely upon him to be, one of the next lines of defense after that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
It definitely does. But I mean, I saw that play and him and Christian Gonzalez, man, with that chemistry, that was just that was something that kind of just got my juices flowing. I obviously know it's just training camp and it's not even preseason yet, but when I saw that play, I was like, wow, that's pretty nice. And honestly, good for him because those are the types of things he's one of those guys that I'm hoping has a really good overall training camp and a really good overall preseason because you know what, that's going to make a difference when it comes to the depth chart.
Right.
So,
it'll
be
interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to get into really quickly. I know that we're at the 34-minute mark, but I do want to talk a little bit about the offense, and I want to talk about Mac Jones because that the other thing coming into the season, of course, is Mac the guy. And you take a look at how they did last season. They averaged 21.5 points per game, which I believe was 17th in the league.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. And then they were really awful when it came to the passing game. And the running game too. Like the running was supposed to be their bread and butter with Damian Harris and with Ramondre Stevenson,
right.
and they were like almost dead last in like all running categories. So, do you think that in regards to just like the whole entire offense, do you think that Bill O'Brien and the rest of the coaching staff can help improve this offense?
It's not going to be a mess, and they weren't on the same page. So, there was sparks last year when things were clicking that the players on the field could be professional football players and gel and produce. And,
Right.
there was games where I was surprised how many points they did put up on the board. But the problem is when they would actually get a lead, or if they were able to be even in the same, like, within a touchdown, is clock management and the lack of running the ball, the lack of getting, and just possession, time of possession. They were like, I think 26th, 27th in terms of possession time. Maybe even higher or lower than that, really. That's a problem because it all comes down to points on the board when the clock's zeros.
Sure.
So when you need to hold the ball and score with zeros on the clock and they don't have a chance to do rebuttal, that's what you want. But they couldn't because they couldn't run the ball and when they needed to. It was the idea is when you want to hold the ball, run the ball, get the first down, when you had to do those things, they were not good at it. They were capable.
Part of that also
goes
on the O-line too.
Right. Oh yeah, it's all O-line, like, those guys just falling apart. Too many injuries maybe that's probably one of the things that a lot of people don't realize or look at. I mean, I did in my last video, which was just the amount of injuries on that is crazy. I mean, every single offensive lineman was injured. Mine is basically Trent Brown, who he went in being really sick, but the offensive line was a mess last year for a lot of reasons. And it's not all Matt Patricia's fault. But with Joe Judge coming in, everybody's going to be on the same page. If you just watch the camp, there's less, like, the body language is like, I get done with my drill, I get back in, I know what I did wrong, and I'm going to do it. Whereas last year, there was just like this general, like, what are we doing? Like, we're trying to learn something new, but we all know
miscommunication
not what we do. Like, there were even like, the big problem with that, without getting too far into it, is that last year they weren't even tooled as a roster to do what they wanted to do last year. Right. A lot of people, I like Mac Jones, but the guy does not have a cannon of an arm.
No.
And if you're going to bomb the ball down the field to, like, try to get these contested catches to Devontae Parker, they can't all be these, like, huge lofts, putting a huge trajectory just to get down there. You kind of have to, like, actually drive it through. And there's times where if you're going to do beyond 15, 20 yards, they can't all be like alley-oops. Like, you got to get it there. And
that was the one thing that Jacoby Myers was good for, was like 50-50 balls,
Right. Jacoby's good at it. They had some guys that were good at that, but you also had the problem with, like, Mac. Yeah, Mac couldn't do that all the time. Mac is really great at that, like, 10 to 15 yards, RPOs, dumping it off, getting the ball to these guys who can make room and space. They don't have any guys last year that were really, once the ball was in their hands, was amazing. There was only one guy, and he was in the doghouse the whole entire year last year, and that was Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne the year prior, ball in his hands, that guy can navigate. He can make moves. All the guys that were available last year to play, the ball's in their hands, and they're just balling up to get tackled. They're not looking to make that extra big move. So, last year was a big mess in a lot of ways. On a theoretical, like, basis, it was a mess.
Yeah, it was. And even, like, on third down conversions, like, they were 27th in the league. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. And on fourth down, not much better. Actually, it was worse. 29.
Terrible. Yeah, which is in comparison to the year before, where they were amazing at that. And again, running the ball, they didn't bring it in. Last year, they barely brought anybody in on, like, motion to, like, help with a lead block or at least help Mac see what's going on with the defense. there's so much wrong last year, and again, that goes to the theoretical and like the play calling and just the clock management and all that. Now you have Bill O'Brien, who doesn't tolerate that at all. Like, they are going to be like ready, prepared, and if you're not playing. So it's not even like a question of like, as the team, like everybody's going to be prepared, or you're not playing. It's going to be a lockdown. It's going to be a lot better. It's just, you can get now. I'll just say this: the Patriots made some moves. I'm the one who would say the Patriots made moves, but basically every other team in the division made moves as well. So, like, although they made progress, Miami Dolphins made some big moves. The Jets obviously made some monstrous moves in many ways. And the Bills, although I would say they're probably going to take a step back in many ways this year,
they're still better.
They're still like one of the best teams in the AFC. So the Patriots might have made a lot of decent moves that makes the team on paper a lot better, but might not yield them any better. Like, I'm a 9-8 guy for them right this year.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah, like that's where I'm at, and that's me being like optimistic that the Bill O'Brien, the Adrian Clem, like that addition plus like like everything's gonna be running well. I mean, it's totally possible that they go 7. They go 7 wins.
Well, you also have to think about the Belichick sons too.
Yeah,
like defensive coordinating and all that sort of stuff. So
there's a lot to go on. It's there's so much. Everything has a question, a storyline, a thread to go on. Yeah. It's gonna be fun to cover and watch and see what's going on, but it's going into the season. It's going to be stressful as a Patriot fan. If you're out there and you're watching, I understand if you're like, basically just like holding your breath on that the kickoff. I mean, going against the Eagles, it's the first half of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if people start getting some ulcers.
Yeah. Well, you got Eagles, then you got Dolphins, and then what? Jets, right?
Jets, yeah.
Jets after
that.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you'll know by you'll know what the year's going to be like by halfway through. Because by halfway through, you might be able to maybe some way get some division situation, maybe towards the end of the year if you went out. But halfway through, like the second half of the year in terms of your non-division play games, it's rough.
It's
rough.
Really rough.
I'd give you like 2 or 3 games where I'm like they're the clear like favorite.
Yep.
But it's the hardest schedule in the NFL in terms of ratings. It's the hardest one to have. So it's, again, being a Patriots fan, it's gonna be a rough season.
I'm excited to see them play against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's going to be really interesting for sure. October 1st, man.
Yeah.
October 1st.
There's gonna be. I'm really excited to see what they can do against the Eagles right off the bat.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then probably the Jets, because they've had the Jets number for years.
Oh my gosh, seeing Aaron Rodgers in that Jets uniform. Oh my gosh.
It's weird.
It's gonna be crazy.
It's weird. But that's a team where, I don't think a lot of people are giving them credit. Like, because Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers, like the guy could still play.
Yeah.
But that team was the reason why they weren't like, they probably would have won the division if they didn't have Zach Wilson as their quarterback. I don't think people realize.
Breece Hall had to stay healthy too.
Yeah.
That was
yeah. That's true. Yeah. You're right. But like that team like lost because of him. Like,
I know.
They were that bad because of their quarterback just being absolutely atrocious. Their defense is solid and they have some great pass catchers. It's going to be interesting for them. Miami's going to be a solid team again this year. I see them doing better on defense just because they brought in a solid defensive coordinator. I know Ramsey's injured for, I think, estimated 6 weeks for the meniscus right now.
That's a big loss.
Yeah. I hear 6 weeks. Let's assume that's going to be what, a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks. So they would miss out on he'd miss out on the Patriots, but who knows? Meniscus, they usually just have to clean it up and it's a go. But still coming back, we'll see how he does halfway through the season. Yeah. The Bills, that's the one where it's going to be interesting for them. I'm not really sure if they're going to come back and being as strong as they were last year. It just seems like the momentum's kind of fading, which, things weigh on you when you are supposed to win over and over and over, and you really don't like go all the way. yeah,
It's
the
mentally
sentiment
tough
in the locker room starts to change,
for sure.
and you go into the year and you're basically looking at almost the same exact team, and you didn't get done last year. It's just not too much confidence going through that locker room, I think, right now. But we'll see.
We'll definitely see.
Yeah,
That's definitely for sure. Last question.
sure.
I'm happy that we're at the 45-minute mark because it's just been such a long time and there's just been so much to just catch up on with this team
Oh yeah, we could
because
be
like
here for
there's
hours.
literally storylines like
Hours.
every single day. Um, so it's really just unbelievable.
Hmm.
So you talked about how obviously, like when you look at the Bills and you look at everybody else in the division, they got a lot of the teams got better too.
Yeah,
And you kind of pointed at this a little bit, like when you said that you expect their record to be 9-8, and that's just you being nice.
yeah. I think
you,
that's
you
like
know,
that's me. Like, oh, I think they could
yeah,
pull that one out. Like that's doing that several
right.
times.
Do you see them possibly competing for a wild card spot?
Yeah, I think that's close enough. And I
Yeah,
think there's going to be. I think again, I went going way back in our conversation, which is I think the NFL is really going to be. We saw this last year, which was a solid meat grinder. I
yep.
mean, there were some teams that made it pretty far being undefeated, but there was a lot of upsets, and some of those upsets now, those upset teams are better this year, so they might be contending for their division. I could
Well,
see this being like a year where you can be like a bunch of teams being at 9-8. I think,
right.
geez, if they went double digits, they might take the division. I think the division
You
could be
think
such a
so?
mean. Oh, I mean, I don't think you're gonna have to get like too far. I mean, if they got like 11 or 12, yeah, I think that might be the division because I think those guys, it's gonna be such a meat grinder, and those guys
Right.
between them Jets versus the Dolphins, like those matchups are gonna be like coin flips every weekend
Yeah.
against those guys. I mean, and they're gonna get themselves beat up. And the rest
I'm
of the
with you.
AFC is tough.
Yeah.
There's not really too many divisions there that are just horrendous. I mean, that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
I think the Jags might be a legit team this year.
Oh, I agree. One
The
thousand
Jags. I
percent.
mean, they did
Yeah.
well last year. Don't get me wrong, but like, watch out for them.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of teams, and who knows? Let's see what the Titans do.
The Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Chargers were probably one of the teams that underperformed last year.
Yeah.
But I
But
think they made some. I mean, again, they made some solid moves.
the
It's going to
Denver
be interesting.
Broncos are so iffy to me. Like,
Yeah, the Broncos. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're either gonna have a great year, or
Mm.
it's just gonna be so bad.
Well,
So
yeah. If you come in and you got Sean Payton coming in, obviously he's going to get a little bit of a leash there, or
yeah,
some space in a year or two to like turn things around. But in terms of how the team's built, not so much.
yeah,
I don't know if they're going to fire sale right away and then just go with it. I mean, it's obviously like Arizona Cardinals is one that obviously they're just completely they're giving it in. I mean, they got rid of DeAndre. They let go of DeAndre Hopkins, so they're obviously not. They're trying to tank for Caleb Williams or
yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr. But yeah, I think it would probably be probably the Broncos are probably one of the ones where that could go either way. Yeah, it's gonna be a mess. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
If you're a fantasy guy or if you're a betting person, I mean, the amount of I think this year was going to be even worse than last year with the amount of people saying that the NFL's rigged. I mean, the amount of like random like fumbles and like officiating calls
Yeah.
I think this year is going to be even worse.
Well, plus you have to think about the new rule changes too. Like, not everybody is taking those, like everything like into account with those things as well. But
Right.
those little things, they make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Penalties
Right.
and
Right.
all that sort of stuff. Like,
The kickoff one will be interesting. How people manipulate that. It's the NFL's way of protecting guys. I get it, but there's something else to go with it. I'm not really sure what. there's obviously a real underlying reason why they're doing that. But we'll see. I mean, it probably, honestly, it probably does have to do with like betting. Honestly,
Funny.
no, I'm serious. Like, I'm pretty
No.
sure it has to do something with like, people are like betting and so much money's going against them, and then there's a random kickoff or a touchdown, and the betting lines get all screwed up.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
No.
I'll go down that. I'll go down that. That's for sure.
Hey, I'm
That's
I
where
totally understand.
Yeah, but
there'll
be some teams that find some way to manipulate in the right way. I'm sure Bill Belichick will be the first one to figure something out. That's typically how it works. If there's a rule change, Bill figures it out. So, yeah, interesting season for sure.
Yeah. Pat Stats, I want to make sure that I thank you so much for coming on here. I'd love to have you come back, like seriously.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even touch anything.
No.
I talked too much, but
no, we were just like scratching the surface pretty much
for sure.
Everything. So I mean, there's so many things that we could have talked about, even just dating back to the whole Lamar Jackson stuff, like with just that whole drama and everything between him and
that seems like
Kraft.
That seems like years ago at this point. I mean, it really does. I mean, that was like
I know.
I mean,
that was a couple months ago.
Well, yeah, it was only a few months ago, but
I know.
It seems like that was like last season's big headline.
Yeah.
But
we didn't even talk about Joe Cardona. I mean, this guy is getting paid $6.3 million, and he's a long snapper, and that's like the most for a long snapper.
It's a record, and I love Joe Cardona as a player, and
he's great. He's great.
He's great. I just don't know if the dollar amount really adds to the value on the field.
Yeah.
Talk about valuations and everything. That's yeah. Well, I mean, think about this. I mean, Bill brought in Chris Board. Does anybody I forget. He has. I can't remember what his contract is, but the guy plays kickoff and punt returns.
Yeah.
I mean, he's notorious for getting these guys. I mean,
2 years, $5 million. $5 million. Yeah,
see,
I literally just remembered that right now.
And he's out there for a few plays a game, and he can play linebacker. Like if you on the depth chart, like he's operable out on that field. Yeah. But that you're paying him for those two particular reasons.
And Matt Slater
Matthew
too.
Slater, Slater.
$7 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here's the argument against this. How many games last year the Patriots essentially lose because of special teams? I think there's two. The Bills game, the Bills game won. That's the big one because that happened twice in the game, and you took those out, they would have won the game.
The Jacoby Myers game.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some mistakes last year, and it's interesting because everybody wants to talk about, but the biggest problem was probably special teams last year, and Joe Judge is now running special teams again. He's basically one of the best special teams guys, period. And then they went out and they got, not only did they go get another guy for being a good gunner on special teams. Well, he's not, Ford's not gunner, but a good special teams guy. They also went and drafted two guys that should be very good on special teams. They're just making sure that, you don't lose a game because of one play. I don't see why that's a problem. Does it really matter if the ball was hiked from a quarterback or if it was just, kicked off from a punter or kicker? I mean, let's be honest. People get pissed off about it, but you go and you pay, these top wide receivers, tens of millions of dollars, and sometimes they only catch like four or five catches a game. Yeah, they end the touchdowns, but at the same time, you got to pay some of these other guys that ensure that nothing really bad happens.
Oh yeah,
and that's that insurance on the special teams.
Yeah. Pat Stats, thanks so much again for coming on here. No. Like, hey, I can talk about this team like all day, seriously, because I really do feel like that I just haven't been giving them the proper attention, and that's obviously like I've been doing a lot of baseball stuff lately, but like at the same time, their season is 365, man. Like the off season is still a season, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even July is honestly the 2 weeks prior to this one is basically the slowest time of the year for football.
And by
You know,
slow, like
it's a slow, like there's nothing. I mean, there's the draft, there's free agency, then there's preseason practices, and then there's a little bit of a lull in July, and
yeah.
then this week on out all the way through the Super Bowl. You know,
Add to the grind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you enjoy baseball.
Thank you so much.
How's that working for you?
It's been going pretty good. I'll be honest. Like I started this channel at the very end of the Pat season last year.
Right.
So I started in December. I was actually interning at NFL Films.
Gotcha.
Like while I started this channel because I miss putting the headsets on. I miss doing podcasting content. I miss doing I graduated from Rowan, so I did a lot of on-air stuff for the radio station there.
Right.
So, I called games for the Delaware Blue Coats, or the NBA G League affiliate of the Philadelphia 76ers. And I also did stuff for the Wilmington Blue Rocks, who were the high A affiliate of the Washington Nationals.
Gotcha.
So, but I also did stuff for our Rowan football team as well, and Rowan baseball too. But I miss putting on the headsets, and that's when I started this channel. And then it was I got 3 weeks of Patriots stuff, and now, I'm going to just finish out the basketball season, and then we'll start doing this every day and doing baseball. And then once football season starts, man, boom.
Yeah.
Between football and baseball, it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, once you get into October, man, it's going to be pretty, that's going to be a hectic schedule.
That is going to be.
I mean, you're going to have everything going at once in October and November. It'd be interesting.
I know. And then sometimes, I looked at the schedule and I'm like, shoot, if the Phillies are competing for a wild card spot, I might have to miss doing a Patriots game, even though I'm going to be doing 2 pods a week. I don't want to do that,
Yeah. You're going to have, I mean, it's possible you have literally every sport. When does that happen? Yeah, that usually happens in October, November, right? Everybody's up and running.
And September too. Yeah, September too. Well, every sport's October. Every sport is October.
Yeah, when you're dealing with all those, everybody's either starting up or in the mid-season or coming to an end.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, good luck. Good luck to you with that.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for everything. We'll definitely keep in touch for sure.
Yeah. We're just getting started.
Yes, absolutely. All right. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you all tonight for the Phillies game. Actually, I'll also see you all. We have our second episode of the Sharing the Mic podcast, and that'll be released at 5:00 p.m. Eastern time. Lots of cool content coming up on this channel. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.